What is going on, everybody? John, actually, I can't do the intro right now because I have to tell you something. Of course, I want to tell everybody on the internet because that's how I do my life. I let everything go on the internet. Some things about personal life, children, I've let it all go on the internet. And I've decided, John, that I'm going to get some plastic surgery. As you know, I turned 41 a few months ago, and I want to look like I'm 40 again. So I'm going to go to the hospital and I'm going to have them drop that year because, you know, 41 just doesn't look as good as 40 did.
No, you know what? You're absolutely correct. I mean, you know, I'm thinking since I'm going to be hitting the big 5-0 next year that maybe I might want to get a nip and a tuck somewhere. But
You're only
50? Yeah, I'm going to be 50. You know that. Why are you even acting surprised?
I thought you were like 70 too.
Yeah, some days I feel like it. Let me just tell you. But yeah, you know, plastic surgery is going to be the topic of this episode of Matlock, and it's an unusual one. And we'll talk about why it's unusual here when we dive on into it. But how you been, man?
Dude, I've been good. It's been good. Everything's good.
Wow, very descriptive of you.
I bought a couch. Oh, I want to talk to you about the couch. So I bought a couch. I went to Odd Lots and I saw a couch on clearance. My girlfriend saw the couch on clearance. So we went over to it, checked it out. It was very nice, very comfortable. The original price on it was $1,200, but it didn't say what the clearance price was. So I went over and I asked the guy that worked there. He's like, well, we have it on clearance for $300 because it was returned because there's like a 1-inch gap at the top because it's two different sides, the couches, and they come together. So there's that little gap at the top where they don't necessarily meet. I'm like, that's it? He's like, yeah. So, you know, me and Deanna are walking around the stores. I'm thinking about getting this couch for $300. And they're having a 20% off sale. So it's already $240 is what it's marked down to. So we're walking around, and then we go back to the couch. And I didn't know this couch was a recliner. So I'm already sold on the couch minus the recliner. So we test out the recliners, and one of the recliners is just slightly off. So I went over to the guy, and I'm like, I noticed one of the recliners was slightly off. Again, I don't care about the recliners. I just wanted this couch. And I'm like, can we knock anything off the price? So he does some quick math, and he gets it down to $142. I bought a $1,300 couch, $142, because of a 1-inch gap and a small issue with the recliner. It's one of those manual recliners, so it's really not a big deal. If it was an electronic recliner, it'd be more of a problem. But you've been proud of me, John.
Man, sir, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
I didn't even know you could negotiate with Big Lots.
I did not know that either.
Apparently you can. Apparently you can. Right. And get an extra $100 knocked off the ticket price.
Now, over the week, I know you've watched a movie that we talked about last episode. So I want your unbridled, absolute, honest opinion on Please Murder Me, starring Raymond Burr and Angela Lansbury. What'd you think of it?
So the film quality aside, because there's a lot of imperfections in the movie, which I also found endearing. I was Googling it because I kind of want to get it on DVD for myself, and I hope it has those imperfections in it. But the movie was good up to a point. I did not like the ending. It's pretty much suicide by Crazy X. It's how the movie ended because, you know, a spoiler alert, I guess, for you guys out there. She did it initially and he got her off. And so he's trying to prove that she did it so she can do it. So in turn, he's trying to get her to kill him so that way she'll go to jail for that murder. And I didn't like the ending. But overall, the movie was good. I mean, it's Raymond Burr playing Perry Mason, even though it's not Perry Mason. And Angela Lansbury was a looker back in the day.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No idea.
Oh, yeah. She was a stunning
Apparently
woman.
She played a lot of murderers back in the day, which just adds to the whole Jessica Fletcher, the murderer on Murder, She Wrote. And she was framing everybody that she came into contact with. That's why murders happened everywhere she went.
Okay. And well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
You can just say she's playing the same character as she was back then.
Yeah, pretty much.
Only name and became a writer.
That's right, Cove. Mm-hmm. Well, anything else you've been watching that you want to talk about?
I've been watching White Collar. I'm really into the USA style shows like White Suits and Psych and Monk. And White Collar is another one in that little series type similar show. Not like they're not connected in any way.
I think the only thing I have watched recently is I watched two things. I watched a documentary on comic book creator Frank Miller called Frank Miller, American Genius. And look, you should keep documentaries to 90 minutes. This was 2 hours and it drug. The last half hour drug big time because you have people who know Frank and said early, like they may have had, I described it this way. So an artist might have 3 segments in that movie, but they only really need 2 because the third one's just them repeating that Frank Miller's a great creative guy, blah, 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 blah. So that was a little bit eh. And
There's only been 2 documentaries that I have ever seen that I didn't feel like were too long. 3 Identical Strangers I felt was the perfect length. And then the Mr. Rogers documentary that you and I saw in theaters. Both of those I felt were perfect. Every other documentary I've ever seen, they all feel like they're 30 minutes too long, and it's all at the end.
I would say Why We Fight, which is my favorite documentary, is really well paced and good timing as well. I think it's maybe a little bit closer to 2 hours, but it just kind of moves.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it feels like I said, Mr. Rogers, I think was 2 hours, but it moved. The Bob Ross one was pretty good too. I don't remember too much.
I forget what the title is. Yeah, it was a Netflix original, but
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that, and then last night I saw, before it leaves theaters, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I know you liked it a lot. I thought it was okay. As I said to you off air, if there's going to be a couple of other sequels, then I'm going to withhold judgment, because to me it just seemed like there were some loopholes that I'm like, you're not answering the questions that I have. And maybe that is like, some other films that have come out recently where they shoot them relatively close, if not back to back. And so the idea is you can watch the first installment, and then in a couple months, the second installment will come and it'll make sense. I didn't hate it, but there was some points where I was like, I have questions and you're not answering these questions. Then what are we doing? So
it's a trilogy starter. I do agree with you on that. He didn't hate it. Trust me, he'd tell us if he hated it.
Oh, I'll tell you.
So when Rise came out, they had mapped out 9 Planet of the Apes movies, and this is the start of that second trilogy. And I kudos to the team behind the Planet of the Apes movies, because they waited until the 4th movie, DC, to announce that they have like this long stretched out plan. They didn't say we had this plan with Rise. So I can't wait to see where it goes. I'm looking forward to the second one because I liked what it set up a lot in Kingdom. Obviously, it's still my favorite movie of the year so far, but still a lot more year left because none of the quote unquote Oscar flicks have come out yet.
Or the heavy hitters.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, one that I'm interested in seeing, because I've seen the preview several times, is Bike Riders with Tom Hardy and Austin Butler, about the start of the Vandals motorcycle club. That looks really interesting. I'm gonna probably try to go see that. I think it comes out maybe next week or the following week. It's really piqued my curiosity.
I don't have any interest in it, but my girlfriend wants to see it. And usually movies I don't have interest in, I end up really liking it. So like Poor Things was a good example of that from last year. I had no interest in watching that movie, and even when it started, I'm like, ugh, and then so I'll probably.
What is I just saw the preview last night for his new one, and I can't remember what it's called.
Who?
The director that did Poor Things.
I don't know, but it's got Emma Stone in it again.
Jesse Plemons. I'm
in on both of them, all 3 of them.
I'm looking them up here real quick. Bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. Good Things.
So while John is looking that up, everybody, how are you doing today? You guys can email us at benmattalk@gmail.com. Yes, this is a pre-recorded show. It is a new show. I will be in the chat talking to you guys. It'll be like some Inception thing because we're recording this ahead of time, but I'll be in the chat to communicate with you. So definitely.
It's called Kind of Kindness.
Kind of Kindness?
Yes.
It's stupid, but I'm in.
Okay. Well, it's that Yorgos guy. Yorgos something very Eastern European that I can't pronounce. So
nice.
All right. Well, with that, then we got a lot to talk about, Jason. So shall we go ahead and jump on into it?
Let's do it, man. Matlock, the brothers.
Here we go. Let's get into our opening statements. The Brothers is the name of the episode, and the original air date is November 13th, 1990. We have a few guest stars that we need to talk a little bit about. First off, and probably the most noticeable of the guest stars, we have Patricia Heaton, and she is playing the role of Ellie Stanford. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, you know exactly who Patricia Heaton is. Of course, she's Deborah Barone on Everybody Loves Raymond, Bree in the movie Beethoven, Frankie Heck on the TV show The Middle, Kelly Carr on the show Back to You, Dr. Silverman on 30-something, and many more credits. My only thing was, I was kind of surprised how little she's actually on screen in this episode.
I didn't even recognize her, man. And you forgot one of her most important credits, John. She played Woman Fan in Space Jam.
Woman Fan. Did not forget that. I just was like, Woman Fan? What? Yeah, she looks a lot different. I mean, obviously she's much younger. But yeah, I was kind of surprised. And maybe that's because I know her as Deborah. And you expect her to have the same amount of screen time when she's starting out as when she's seasoned vet. So
yeah, all right, let's talk role, man. One guest star we don't have in this movie is funny Don Knotts jokes.
We don't have any Don Knotts jokes. Don't worry, I have a story about Don. Well, that goes along with that.
We don't have any funny Don Knotts jokes in this episode.
Oh, funny being the key term.
Yeah, not funny. It's not a guest star in this episode.
Well, let's talk about another guest star, David Haskell, who will be playing the role of Dr. Scott Weston. You may know him as Howard Graves on the CBS soap opera Falcon Crest, Nick Hartley on Santa Barbara, the drama teacher in Body Double, Carl Russelman on Knots Landing, and quite a few other roles as well. Jason, I've never seen it, but I think you're going to agree with me. Body Double. That's one of those ones you saw all the time on the video rack, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You remember that one?
Yeah, I know exactly I can see the cover right now.
Yeah. So I've never seen it, never watched it. I need to do that. We should probably do that.
Yeah, young me definitely wanted to rent it.
Oh, yeah, young me. And then Papa Orlando was like, no, you're not.
Yeah, that was up there with like Fatal Attraction and Disclosure and Basic Instinct and Showgirls.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then our last guest star is Christopher Tabori. He will be playing the role of Dr. Lowell Carr. And now he has actually already been on Matlock. As a matter of fact, season 3, episode 10, The Black Widow, in which he played the role of Steve Davidson. The Black Widow was the fantastic episode where the woman supposedly died and her husband was grieving. She moved on to California or somewhere and was like this hotshot real estate agent. He shows up. She ends up dead. Ben has to defend him. It's that episode there. But he's probably most known for doing a ton, literally like a ton of video game voiceovers. Some of the titles he's worked on: Star Wars, The Old Republic, Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, Spider-Man, Web of Shadows, Dishonored. He's got like a truckload of those credits on his IMDb.
Nice.
And in fact, he even played the role of Jonah on a cartoon that you mentioned just the other day, The Greatest Adventure Stories of the Bible.
Yes, I cannot wait for that channel to drop. Me TV, guys, go check out the DVD cast for last week. John and I talk a lot about animated television and classic television in general.
Absolutely. All right, with that then, Jason, I got a question for you. Are you ready to give an opinion? Your opinion, and only your opinion, so help you.
Let's testify!
Let's testify! The plot of this episode is that Ben must defend a plastic surgeon accused of killing his business partner. So we go to a opening. Let's try that again. got tongue-tied on the words opening scene, Jason. Let's go to our opening scene where we get a nice shot of the skyline of Atlanta. And we cut to a scene where Dr. Carr is consoling a patient. He's unwrapping the bandages on the individual's face. Meanwhile, there is a Miss Ferguson who is a female patient that's very unhappy, and she is giving the business to Dr. Weston, saying her nose isn't what she wanted. She's going to sue. And Scott Weston and Lloyd Carr kind of have this very tense discussion. All right. And they agree that they're going to meet later on. So after hours, we get a scene of the nurse leaving the practice, and she happens to stop by and eavesdrops a little bit, and she hears a huge argument between the doctors. All right. So that cuts us to the next day when Dr. Carr arrives at Miss Ferguson's home. And in a very weird way, he asks for a cup of coffee. She leaves. He goes over, unlocks the window.
That is rude. That is rude. He walks in the house and goes, "That smells good." And he doesn't even know her. Like, he's just there to offer his services. And he's like, "That coffee smells good. Can I have a cup?" It's like, dude, yeah, be asked to have coffee. Don't tell her to get you coffee.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's and what's even further rude is unlocking the window, because that's not your window to unlock, sir.
Yeah.
So basically, Dr. Carr says, "Look, I'll refix your nose, okay? And if you want a little something else done, not a problem. Let's just smooth this over, and we'll be a-okay."
I was waiting for Dr. Carr to go upstairs and take a shower, maybe take a nap in her bed. Like, this dude just walks in the house like he owns the place.
So we see Dr. Carr arriving at a physician's dinner or conference. I'm not sure what it was. And in the meantime, Dr. Weston shows up at Miss Ferguson's door, and he notices, that it is ajar. And he enters and is stabbed by Dr. Carr. Well, first of all, why is he at Dr. Ferguson? Why is he at Miss Ferguson's house? That's my question. That's never really explained in the episode. He just shows up. He was told to go there, and he went.
I don't think it's explained either, except for him, just offering to fix it.
Well, I think that there was an inference that Dr. Carr told him to go over there and make nice with her, but it's not a very strong scene. I don't recall anything ever coming of this, that he shows up randomly. Yeah,
I don't think so. Not out of my 2 watches.
So Miss Ferguson shows up and in this next scene, and then the police department is going over the crime scene. And Ferguson is a suspect, but she has an alibi. She was at work till like 7:30 or 8 o'clock. And then Ellie shows up, and what do you know? They start talking about Dr. Carr. Ellie claims that she saw Dr. Carr leaving the house the previous night. And so then we go to police headquarters where Bob and Ben, they're chatting with Dr. Carr. And Ben is a client of Dr. Carr. He talked about some skin cancer issues he had and wear sunscreen and all this jazz. Wouldn't that be a conflict of interest?
No. It's only a conflict of interest if Ben is prosecuting him. To defend him isn't a conflict, just like it's not a good idea to have relatives defend you, but it's not a conflict. It's only a conflict if you're prosecuting the people. Yeah, no, you can defend anybody you want to defend. It's not in your best interest to, just because they're biased. But yeah, no, you can. It's fine. Okay. Dr. Carr is a douche.
Who?
I'm sorry. I don't like Dr. Carr, or whatever the doctor's name is.
Well, no. You know what? That's funny you mentioned that. You might not like Dr. Carr. Well, guess what? He's got a twin named Gary. Do you like Gary better?
I did like Gary. Gary's a hoot.
Look, I got to say right off the bat, they did a great job in 1990 of having Mr. Tambori play 2 roles. I mean, that was great. It by today's standards, it was cheesy, right? We look at it and go, "Oh God, that's so lame."
I thought they did a good job. They almost did what Van Damme does in his movies when he has a twin.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very well done. So Gary's interviewed by Julie while Ben and Bob are there to take notes. And I put down here, great camera work. Julie thinks that the doctor did it, all right, because she talks to Ben after the interview with Gary, and she thinks he did it because she's like, I bet he could have slipped out from that conference, come back. He could have murdered Weston, come back, yada, yada, yada. So we have a scene where Ben is in Dr. Carr's office, and he's asking about Gary. He's asking about Scott Weston. And at this point, we have a scene where Gary at night is creeping around Miss Ferguson's house. And we find out why. So we go back to Ben and Dr. Carr still chatting at the office. And Dr. Carr pitches, hey, you know what? I know you cost $100,000. How about if I do some work for you and you defend me free of charge? We'll swap that. And this starts Ben with his. And for those that are listening to the audio cue, I'm making all kind of weird faces. But yeah
Ben's
like
for wrinkles.
He's looking for wrinkles, man. And when you're looking for wrinkles, Jason, and you're a little insecure about yourself, who do you want to see come through your front door?
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. Listen, Don Knotts, I really liked him on Three's Company. I haven't seen Andy Griffith's show except one episode. I'm working on that. But in this show, this is his worst appearance since his first appearance. His jokes in this awful. They don't fit. I'm sorry. I know that's wrong to say, but I appreciate Andy Griffith and Don Knotts' relationship. Just throwing his buddy some work. It's just the jokes don't land. I find Ace to be obnoxious in this episode and the first. He's been fun since the first episode until now, but he comes in and makes it all worse.
Yeah, he does. Ace does show up and he tells Ben that's not a bad idea to get some work done. Ace claims that he's never going to wrinkle because of his yellow pigmentation.
Yeah, and Ben tells him that yellow means you could be jaundice. And then that was pretty funny. And then Don Knotts is like, oh no, and he goes to see his doctor immediately.
Well, here you go. This is my story from college. I had a history professor, my mentor. He's passed on, but he was also on the side. He had a bunch of rental properties. And one day I had to talk to him about something for class. And I was walking with him down the halls. We're going to his office. And he says to me, and he always called me Johnny, which I'm not a big fan of, but okay. He was like, Johnny, let me tell you something right now. I'm working on this apartment up in Pittsburgh there. I'm like, okay. Let me give you a word of advice. Never, ever in your bathroom put yellow tile up. I'm like, why? Because you'll wake up one day from a hard night of drinking. You'll go in the bathroom, you'll look in the mirror, and you'll think you're jaundiced and your liver's shot. Thanks, sir. I appreciate that. So I've kept that in mind. No yellow tile in any of the bathrooms. So nice. There you have it. Okay. Getting back to the episode, here we go. Ben is at Gary's garage, and Gary has owned many businesses, but none of them seems to be successful, right? Like, I forget how many he rattled through, like 3 or 4. And the brothers do get along, all right? And Gary wanted some money from his brother. His brother's like, hey, man, look, you're an adult. You're the same age as me. Do it yourself, man. Be a man. Be a man. So Gary hits up Scott, and as Ben decides to leave the garage, we get a nice camera pan. But guess who's on the case? Conrad, baby. He's on the case as he's sitting in the Mustang right outside the garage. And then we cut to Miss Ferguson working in her yard, and she finds a pen. And that is why Gary was snooping around outside her home, as we'll find out in a little bit. So some random goon chats. Let's try that again. Tonight, folks, I just can't talk for some odd reason. I don't know what it is. You throw me out there live, it's good, but I don't know. Recording, I'm all bad. Anyways, a goon chats with Gary about being square. because apparently Gary did some things for him and vice versa. And that goon, by the way, is going to be named Ken Groman, and we'll get into his story in a little bit. Conrad observes it all. And so the brothers are going to go out for lunch, as we see in the next scene, when Bob and Ben stop them, and they ask, whose pen is this? And Dr. Carr says, well, it's mine. And then he's put under arrest. And Gary complains to high heaven that they got the wrong guy. Ace returns. I know you love this scene. Ace is chuckling. He got a clean bill of health. He's got no jaundice.
Does he have that mask on at this point?
Yes. I was gonna say, he does the weirdest thing ever. He puts this mask on, which was stupid. It made no sense.
I mean, he was trying to prove that he had no wrinkles with the mask on, but it did not land. I'm sorry. I know it's not something you're supposed to say about a legend. It's just in this episode, he does not work. No,
it's awful. And in fact, it even gets more weird and awkward when Conrad shows up, because he's like, and then Ace leaves, and then he's like, he's a weird fellow, isn't he? Yes, he is. And it just, I don't know. You're right. It went nowhere whatsoever.
I'd like to see him defend Ace.
Ooh. Didn't he defend Ace on the lemon? No. He didn't defend Ben on the lemon. I think that Ben just got him the car returned. I don't think there was an actual real court case there. But as I was going to say, the bar that Gary was seen at, Conrad has found out it's owned by this Ken Groman, who's a mobster. And now it's held by some mysterious holding company. So we go to the courtroom where Dr. Carr said that he was given the pen the day after the murder, so he has no idea how it ended up outside of the window of Miss Ferguson. We go back to the bar where Groman is sitting at the bar, and Conrad knocks the drink out of his hand by accident. Oh, man, I'm so sorry. I've lost my contact lens. I can't seem to find it. So while he's doing that, on the down low, Conrad swipes glasses and exchanges glasses. Why? Well, to get a little bit of some evidence, if you will, and help out the cause. So, Jason, what do you think about that snide, slick move that old Conrad just pulled?
Nice. I mean, good. Conrad's great. I am missing Nancy Stafford. I'm missing Michelle in these last few episodes.
I agree wholeheartally.
We couldn't write her in before we wrote Ace Calhoun in. I mean, I'm sure she was off doing something.
I don't know, man. I don't know. All right, but we cut to a scene of the office of Dr. Carr where a nurse and Dr. Carr and Ben are all looking for the pen. When Dr. Prescott stops by to get a file. Now, I seem to have forgotten to list this, that in their very first scene where Dr. Carr was at the conference, he ran into Dr. Prescott, who wanted this file about some medical procedure. But Dr. Carr doesn't seem to recall this promise to loan the file. Uh-oh. So we go to the courtroom.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's right. Thank you. You're a little off on that one. I was waiting on that.
That's when I figured out what happened.
Oh, yeah, same here. Ellie is on the stand, and the court is buzzing when Gary arrives. And Ellie said, well, I know I said that I saw Dr. Carr, but I might have seen Gary. I'm not sure. So there is a little bit of that jesting or jousting, I guess you could say, between Julie and Ben. And we find out that Ken Groman's prints are on the glass, and that basically Dr. Carr had given a facelift to Groman. It's right out of Face Off, folks, in the late 90s, early 2000s. And the interaction with Prescott was the key that Ben needed. So we cut to the courthouse. Conrad and Ben discuss the case before walking into the courtroom. Ben says he'll do what he can do for his client because now, Dr. Carr is implicated as being involved in this. So Gary is on the stand, And Ben is just piling the, I put down, quote, insults, end quote, onto Gary. Your brother was smarter than you. He was more athletic than you. He was more successful than you, et cetera, et cetera. And so Ben believes that Gary set up Dr. Carr, and Gary's alibi is blown apart. That he claims there was a parts vendor at the garage until 8:30, and the parts vendor left at 7. Got about 10 minutes down the road, realized he forgot his great big cowboy hat, and he went back to the garage, and the garage was all locked up, lights out, everybody gone. So Gary then states, no. I can explain. I was at the physician's conference, and Gary puts the pen at Ferguson's home. He admits to that because Dr. Carr, his brother, asked him to do it. And then Dr. Carr exclaims, "Shut up!" And Ben confronts Dr. Carr with the facts that there was a facial surgery on Ken Groman, so he wouldn't go to jail to avoid some of his mobster chicanery. And Dr. Carr then decides, I would like to plead guilty, Your Honor. But it doesn't matter because both of the brothers are going down.
I mean, technically, Ben is the worst criminal defense attorney because if he finds out you're guilty, he's going to set you up to fall apart.
Absolutely. And I wrote down here, this is a loss for Ben. We don't have too many losses. He doesn't take the L very often, does he?
No, but this is the second time he's defended somebody who was guilty, and he got them to change
their
which
tune.
I don't think defense attorneys can't do that.
No, see right there, that's a conflict of interest, isn't it?
So I don't know if it's a conflict of interest, but it's not something you're supposed to do. You could probably go to the bar for it.
Well, we have the final little scene where Julie and Ben are walking down the hall of the courtroom, and Julie says, I don't think you need any work done, Benjamin Matlock. And we fade to black. All right, Jason, anything else you want to talk about real quick before we jump into our wrap-up of the episode?
Just anybody out there that's a plastic surgeon that wants to help me get back a year, I would appreciate it. I can trade podcasting talents for the plastic surgery, so we can podcast about anything. I'll just make it up, and none of it will be factual, but I can talk about it.
No. Podcast right there from the operating room.
There you go.
There you go. You can get it all blow by blow details. So
I am on my way to look like I'm 40 again.
Hey, real quickly, if you want to let Jason know if you're available as a plastic surgeon, Jason, where they can get in touch with us.
Yeah, we'll podcast for smooth skin. Thank you, Justin. But not too smooth, just to want to look 40. I'm not selfish. I'm not selfish. Just a little bit. Anyway, you guys can email us at benmattalk@gmail.com.
There you go. Or you can find us on Facebook at Mattalk Podcast. All right, then, Jason, let's go ahead. Let's get into it. Let's get into our closing statements.
This is the podcast where John and I will rate the show on a gavel system. 1 gavel means we hated it. 5 gavels means we loved it. Negative 37 gavels means we are getting plastic surgery. I'm becoming John. He's becoming Jason. We're going to take face off too.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I will go first. Okay, so
right.
I didn't hate this episode. I didn't love this episode either. You guys know how I felt about Ace in that first appearance that we had him. Like I said, Don Knotts better, but this was a major step back as Ace Calhoun in this episode. I wasn't a fan. Also, Matlock not defending his client to the best of his ability kind of bothers me, even though I know what he's going for, but like, you're not supposed to like turn on your client. Like, that's not supposed to happen. But anyway, the episode, like I said, middle of the road. I give it the same thing I gave last week's episode, a 2.5 out of 5.
I give it a 3 gavels. Yeah, I felt like the end got rushed. Like, just the Gary on the stand and then Dr. Carr, that felt really rushed. So I didn't like that. I didn't like that there's really no build for this Ken Groman character. Like, I felt like he didn't need to be in this episode. There was no Michelle. Things I did like, I already mentioned the camera work with the one actor playing 2 parts. I thought that was good. I thought Ben messing around with Ace was pretty funny. It's a good way to get a little comedy in there. And look, I mean, it's cliche, but we've seen a lot of this in this genre of twins pulling shenanigans. In fact, we saw it in season 1 with the sisters, I believe. Then maybe that was season 2. But, overall, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. So I gave it 3 gavels as well.
The sisters did it better, in my opinion.
I agree.
The guy who played the doctor, he did a great job playing 2 different characters. The entire facial, emotions and structure seem different with each character. And that's not something easily pulled off.
No. All right, Jason, let's talk about our own podcast. So tell everybody what's happening with the 3 Geeks podcast.
I am part of the 3 Geeks podcast. That is right. 3 Geeks podcast. We are live Saturdays at 7 p.m. Guys, go subscribe. My Sasquatch Sunset review is causing all kinds of malarkey on the YouTube. People are not happy that I hated that movie. I'm sorry. It wasn't good. It wasn't for me. I say it wasn't for me. I don't care about Sasquatches pooping in the middle of the street. It's not for me. But find all that stuff over on 3 Geeks podcast on YouTube and anywhere you find audio podcasts.
You know what? This is the first episode that's had 2 references to pooping. So
yeah, and John, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you.
Oh, okay. Let's.
Oh, guys, we are out of time. Sorry.
You stink! Don't you dare. Anyways, PVDcast.com is the home of yours truly online, where you can find every episode of the PVD Cast, or wherever you find great podcasts. Check out the newest episode, number 433. And I got to try to remember this. I sit down with David Hedgecock and we talk about his comic, which is called Super Kaiju Rock and Roller Derby Fun Time Go. And if you're saying, why is the title so darn long? Tune in. He explains it. Tune in and find out. All right. We talk all about that comic, his other comic that's coming out in the fall as well. David was a cool dude. He's got a lot of cool tales to tell, from being an indie creator to actually working for IDW as well. So check it out, pvdcast.com, or wherever you find great podcasts. All right,
guys,
Jason.
That could have gone a lot longer. But guys, also 3 Geeks podcast, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary in August, which, John, you better be available for that episode. We will be calling on some old guests, playing some clips, talking about the beginnings, trying really hard to bring Philip in for that episode. We'll see. We haven't been talking forever, but I'm hoping I can pull Philip in and have him at least make an appearance, if not send in a video, because, he helped start.
All right. Well, with that, Jason, you froze up there for a minute, so I was like, what? All right. With that, then, Jason, what do you say we get on out of here, man?
Get out of here. My girlfriend's freezing the internet, so I get off.
All right, with that, ladies and gentlemen, as they say in court, nothing further.